Hey there, we're taking a look at Watch Dogs Legion running on the i5-1135G7. Starting off, we are looking at it at 1080p with the lowest possible settings. Now, it's not even the lowest preset. Even the lowest preset still has some things that need to be fixed. Another thing to mention is that this actually has, like a adjustable temporal anti-aliasing scaling. So you can drop it down to like 50% and just let the AA kind of do its own reconstruction. I didn't mess around with any of that. I was just kind of like running it at like the most base stuff. If you want to mess around and like adjust that, you can squeeze out a little bit more performance. That being said, at 1080p, it's just like impossible to actually play this. It's very brutal. Like you're getting, I mean, look, you're getting an average of 16 FPS. That is like awful. I mean, at least the 1% lows are pretty close to the average, you know? So it'll be a very consistent and smooth 16 frames per second. But in all honesty, 1080p is completely out of the question unless you really want to mess around with the temporal upscaling, and even then that's going to be a rough image a lot of the times. Like once you really have to start dropping that down, it gets really rough. But it always seems to be the case with 1080p, so dropping down to 720p does net us a noticeable increase in performance. For some reason, even though I have VSync off, the FPS just would not go above 30. I don't know why. I tried messing with all the display settings. I tried full screen. I tried borderless full screen. I tried windowed mode. Nothing would really let me go above 30, and I don't know why that was the case. But at this point, the benchmark looked promising, so I felt comfortable to just jump into the campaign and see how it ran. So when you're actually playing the game, the performance is actually pretty good. In this opening area, it was pretty enjoyable. I had a blast actually going through this. I really enjoyed the Watch Dogs like gameplay. And this seems like it's going to be a pretty neat iteration of that. But one thing that I gotta mention is if you are going into, the city and all that, expect a noticeable performance hit. Throughout this opening section, it was pretty good, but once I got into the city itself, it did get rough. But I think you could still get away with playing the game if you're perfectly fine with dips into the low 20s, which, I mean, listen, I grew up playing games like that, all right? So if this is literally the only way you can play the game, you're gonna be able to actually play it, I feel like once you start to go into like 15 frames per second, that's when it's just like, this is going to be for only the strongest of wills. But if you're an absolute, just giga chad that can handle playing games at like 20, 25 FPS, then yeah, you can do it on here. I mean, that was me as a kid. I could get away with it on here. I mean, honestly, with the FPS that I was getting throughout playing this, I feel like I could continue to play like this. And it's funny because Watch Dogs 2 did not give us really that playable a performance, like the 1% lows were pretty brutal. And to be fair, the 1% lows do get kind of brutal on here when you are in the city, but in Watch Dogs 2, it was like you couldn't go out and do anything. Because even Watch Dogs 1, if you went out into like the streets and all of that, the performance would kind of tank. But Watch Dogs 2, you could be doing anything and it was just running like absolute garbage. But I think because DX12 is actually like what this defaulted to and it's being utilized properly, it seems like the system is just able to get like some pretty noticeable performance uplift. And you can squeeze out more performance if you're willing to mess around with the temporal upscaling, You just drop that down to like, let's say 75. 75 is about as low as I'd go. You drop that down to 75, you might be able to squeeze out enough performance to kind of even out any of those dips that might happen. But for the most part, I actually say this is a win. This is a very playable game on this chip. It's pretty great. Considering how heavy of a game it is and how badly the previous game in the series ran, this is pretty great, honestly. But anyways, I want to thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe and I will see you guys later.